Hey everyone, George here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is so important and often gets overlooked, and that is pumps and filtration and how they work together. So stick with me, and we're going to come right back and we'll be talking about that. So I wanted to use this camera angle here because it does show the reflection at the top of the tank and also gives you an idea of water flow and how important that is to the oxygenation of that tank. Now, you have to have an adequate amount of water flow, but you can overdo it as well, and you have to really kind of consider so many different factors as to why your water flow may be too much for some of the stock in your tank or maybe too little for the whole system, and figure out a balance that is going to complement the whole system altogether. Now, as you can see, when we look at this tank, which is completely different, and I'm sorry about the reflection of the window behind me, there's nothing really I can do about that, but if you look at this system here, you're going to notice that the water flow at the top of the tank is a little bit more aggressive than it is in the tank that I showed you previous to this. And that has a lot to do with the type of system that I have here, the stock that are in the tank and what they can tolerate, and how much oxygen I feel is important for all of the stock in this tank, because you have to consider everything that you have in the tank. There are so many systems that are stagnant, and water flow is just not happening, and it is simply because the pump is not adequate enough to really move that water around. Now, a lot of fish don't like real heavy movement, so you have to take that into consideration, but it is more important that you balance everything, as I said, to make sure that you're getting enough flow at the top of that tank and the rest of the tank to really putting enough oxygen in that system to make all of the inhabitants of the tank really healthy. So to talk about this a little bit further and to fully understand what I'm talking about as far as water flow and the importance of it, is to understand that this complete system is very, very important as to how you balance that out. And I keep using that word balance because it's so true. If you look at these particular tanks here on both sides of me here, you do see that these tanks are crystal clear, they're algae free, they're just very, very well established tanks. Now, there's a lot more, of course, obviously, that goes into a well-established and balanced tank than just the pump system, but everything starts with filtration and pump. And we're going to talk about when you purchase a system from somebody such as, for example, here, Waterbox, or Marine Depot, or Red Sea, or Fiji Cube, or whoever it happens to be, that when you're looking at that system, what they're going to give you, other than the tank itself, which is what they're really selling you, is the accessories that come with it. How important is it as to whether or not you are getting something that is going to be sufficient and is going to last over a long period of time and do an adequate job of pushing water through that is adequate enough to keep your tank healthy and well filtrated. So as we get into this, we're going to talk about several different kinds of pumps that you can do, or add-on pumps. Now, we are not going to be talking about hang off the back tanks systems, because I don't do those and I don't know enough about them to really give you enough information that I feel would be adequate to be really honest with you about the kind of filtration that those kind of systems offer. Every one of my tanks are really enclosed areas like you would see back in here, where you have a sock system over here. You have all of your main filtration, such as your sponge, your carbons, your ceramic, and then you have your pumps. Now this one here has an additional pump on there There's a reason for that. It has nothing to do with the idea that Waterbox did not supply me with an adequate pump. It has more to do with this was given to me to test out, as I said to you, I think a couple of videos back. In fact, I think I did a review on this particular pump here. I don't know how many videos back, but several. And so I don't want you to look at this as being something that's added because this is not adequate without this. That is a completely different system that I have added, as I said, just to test it out because I was asked to do that by the company that manufactures that. So when we talk about pumps, for example, this pump right here comes with Waterbox, and it is pushing about 286 gallons per hour through here. Now, this is a great pump. There's a lot of good things about this pump that you know, most people would find adequate. Now, the one thing that you see with most of these pumps is there is a dial on the front here. This one's not moving, it's a little bit stiff, but there is a dial on the front of these that moves, there it goes. It moves in either direction to increase or decrease the flow in your tank. And that is so important because we don't want to be blowing fish all over the place in your tank. Most fish don't like that. There are certain species that require that kind of tank or like that kind of system, but most fish will not really enjoy being blown all over the tank. Now, this came with Fiji Cube, which is a tank that I do not have in this particular gallery here. I think I said that it came with this Waterbox tank, and it did not. That's not true. The Waterbox pumps that come with it are something that we'll talk about in a minute here, but this is a pump that came with Fiji Cube. I think this is a 38-gallon tank, and what I found over a short period of time of maybe a month or two is this pump started to rattle and make a lot of noise and was really starting to irritate anybody that was sitting in the room with that. And this 38-gallon is a display tank in my family room, and it was just something that I just could not tolerate. Now, I wasn't sure why it was doing that. I didn't know if it was vibrating against the chamber in the back or if there was something wrong with the pump itself. Now, what I found out from a friend of mine who was really aware of this particular kind of problem was that you can fix this real easy. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to do that, and then we're going to start talking about other pumps and what you can do if you're not happy with the pump that comes with the system, what you can do to upgrade them. Should you upgrade through the company that makes the tank itself, or can you go out and find aftermarket products that do as good or better job and are quieter? And we're going to talk about that when we come back. Now, this particular pump right here, as I said, goes to a Fiji Cube that I have. Now, even at its lowest setting, on a 38 to 40 gallon, whatever this might be, the actual pump itself is not really terribly noisy, but what happens with these pumps is as they're running, because they're not real smooth pumps, because like I said, they're inexpensive, they're not their top of their line, and what happens is gradually, as the pump is pumping through there, it's vibrating constantly, and as it vibrates, and slime and all the stuff that ends up in the back of your compartments back there gets underneath these little feet right here, and they no longer stick. And you've probably seen this happen with heaters, with pipes going into the back of your system or out of your system or whatever. After a while, they just don't stick the way they're supposed to. And what happens basically is this thing will dance along the bottom and eventually end up right against one side or the other of the chamber. And actually it could even happen forwards and backwards as well. But when it does that, what it's going to do is it's going to make a vibration sound. just simply does that because the pump itself is moving like this, and it's vibrating up against either plastic where the chamber and the glass to your tank come together, or to the glass side of the tank on the back side. Either way, they're going to figure out a way to vibrate over into those areas, and they're going to make a lot of noise, drive you crazy. Simple solution to that, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right now. You see this material right here? This is something you can find in any hardware store. Basically what it is material that they use for toolboxes, and it's to line the drawers of toolboxes so that your tools sit nice and softly against there and they're not scratching up the bottom of your toolbox. This stuff comes in sheets or it comes in a roll. Now you can buy it in a roll in bulk for about $25. This is the way I recommend doing it. If you buy it with the brand name on it of the toolbox or whatever, you're going to pay 3 or 4 times as much for it, and they're already cut perfectly to the size and everything. You don't really need to do that. Buy a roll of this stuff, cut it yourself, and I'm going to show you what you do. You're basically going to take your pump and you are going to place it on this piece just like this. Now it's not going to stick to it because it doesn't have any way of doing that. This material is porous and it just doesn't have any way of sticking to it. What you're going to do is you're going to wrap it just like this. This will not impede the flow of water. The water's going to get in there no matter what you do. And then you're going to do the same thing, as you can see on the front there. You're going to do the same thing on the side up here, same thing on the back where you can't see where I'm looking. And you're going to place this down into that chamber tightly. Now, sometimes you need 2 pieces of this if the chamber is very big. But what that's going to do is, if that vibration happens and this starts to ride along and bump up against the chamber wall of any of the 4 sides, it's not going to make any noise. It's going to be insulated against that noise simply because you have this rubber insulation that does not allow that vibration to be profound or make a lot of noise. Just an absolute simple fix that if most of these companies would just line these chamber areas where these pumps sit, it would solve the problem. It's probably a $3 problem that anyone would be glad to pay if that would solve the issue. So what you want to do is do this, or if you don't want to do that, what I recommend is going out and doing something like this. Now, Aquatop makes several different sizes of these, going all the way up to, I think it's 300 gallons, basically. And this one here is made for any tank up to, let's see here, from 20 to 40 gallons. So it's a very small pump. It's a little bit smaller than this. I don't have it in the box here because I'm using this, but I kept the box, so I just wanted to show you. It's a very small one. In fact, a piece of this material that we talked about, I would use that even with this, even though this thing is 20 times quieter than this one and less expensive than anything that they're going to send you. I would still continue to wrap the pump into that because you'll be absolutely dead silent forever for as long as you own that pump. The pump will give out long before you'll ever hear any vibration out of it. So that's a cheap way to do this. Now, Aquatop is one of my favorites because these guys make some of the best aftermarket pumps, I believe, on the market. There are other brands out there. I'm not going to go through a ton of different brands or whatever, but I would say there are a ton of different brands out there. This isn't the do-all brand. I just happen to use it because I like these guys. I use a lot of their products, and it's a great little pump, and it is dead quiet compared to this one. Now, as I said, If you want to buy a pump either with Waterbox, Fiji Cube, Red Sea, Marine Depot, anyone that makes these aquariums, uh, they will sell you, when you initially buy, they will sell you a pump that they tell you is, absolutely silent, and they are. But they can have the same problem. It is not just the pump. It is the movement of the pump. As I said, if you fold it up like this on all four sides, not a problem with water getting in here. It's not impeding it in any way, shape, or form. But when it gets up against that glass, it's just not going to vibrate. So let's move on to a couple of other things that I want to talk about. We see these a lot here. Do you need extra oxygen in your tank? I don't use these for display tanks simply because I have good flow. And as I showed you in the first part of this video, when I panned up to the top and gave you a shot of the water flow up there, there's a lot of oxygenation that's going on. You're moving water around at the very surface, and that's where your oxygen comes from, is from the surface. Obviously, that movement is pulling air down and oxygen down into that moving water at the top and dispersing that oxygen throughout the tank. So it's very important that we understand that movement and the direction of that nozzle is very important to that. If you don't feel you're getting enough, this is another option here. These are easy to hide. I don't like using them because I just don't like the looks of them, and I don't like the bubbles going up. It looks kind of cheesy, like those tanks that you used to go in the doctor's office and see, and they were just awful to look at or whatever. But if you do feel like you need oxygen in your tank and you're not getting a sufficient amount from the pump and the filtration system that you're using, this is a great option for that. You can hide this behind your hardscape or whatever else you have in your tank. There's lots of different tanks out there. Do not put these in the chamber, however. Do not put the stone down in the chamber, because basically by the time you do that and it runs through this pump, you really have lost everything, and it's just not doing really anything at all. So that is another option. So like I said, if you need it, use these, but make sure you do have a check valve on here, and also make sure that periodically you are changing the stone on here as well. About every couple of months, these things are going to get gooped up or whatever, and then they're going to require you to change the stone. So I keep some of these on hand, and I only use these in my quarantine tanks and my hospital tanks, because that's usually when your fish need the most oxygen, is when they're new and stressed out in a quarantine tank, or if they're being medicated and are in a hospital tank and need that extra oxygen flow. These come in handy. But if you do want to use these in your display aquariums, I don't have any problem with you doing that. That's a personal preference. And again, make sure you change the stone periodically though, because these will get gooped up and they will not put as much bubbles in the water as you need over time. And they get kind of nasty, the tubing and stuff like that. This tubing, you can buy a whole roll of this stuff for not a heck of a lot of money at all, just to keep it on hand. Don't bother trying to clean it, just throw it away. Now you can clean this by just putting it in some bleach and water and let it soak. You can do that if you want to, but then you have to dechlorinate it, and you just don't know if you got it all, and it's just not worth it, so I don't even bother. Now, a fourth option is this guy right here, which I like. It's a product made by Aquatop, and basically this is a telescoping unit here, and what it does basically is, as it goes up and down, it's a little bit squeaky here because this is a used one. I think there's a little something in there, but it does telescope up and down so that you can direct it to the top and adjust it, because this does have to be fully submerged. You cannot have this in your tank and have it part way out of the water. The only thing that can be out of the water, and barely out of the water, is this little telescoping area right here. Now, if you want to turn the flow up and down, It also has an adjustment down here to do that, so that you can turn the water up and down to minimize the amount of flow that's coming out of it. It also has the feet on the back so that you can put this thing in any way that you want to in the tank. So these are very adjustable. The bottom ones are not, but this is so that you can put it sideways in the tank. You can put it straight up and down in the tank. Using this as an option as well, I find that when you put it in this way, up and down, when it's straight up and down like this holds better and seems to keep this little pump in place. Now, the one thing I like about this unit is this is a 3-stage system. I know it's very small. I would not use this for a large tank. I wouldn't use this for anything more than a 10-gallon tank. I've used this very successfully in a 10-gallon, and it has a 3-stage system. I don't have anything in here right now because I'm not using it, but basically there's about this much space for ceramics in the bottom. There's another space here for charcoal, and then at the top there's a space for sponge. So there's plenty enough room for all of that for a very small system such as a nano tank or something like that. So I hope I've helped you figure out some of the ways in which you can get the best flow in your system and prevent this problem that I know I get so many comments from people on about the noise that happens with these. And I don't want to make this video any longer than this, but I do want to summarize what we went over, and I'm going to come right back in a minute and we're going to do that. So the question is, are all pumps created equal? And the answer to that is no, they're not. You do get what you pay for. That's pretty much how everything in life is. Now, these pumps that do come with systems like these Waterbox, which I love these. I have to tell you, Waterbox and I have a great relationship, and I'm not trying to push their products because I don't have any kind of relationship where they pay me or anything like that. We have arrangements otherwise, but I do believe that Waterbox has some of the more superior products out there, and I think that the pumps that they offer with their products are way better than many of the companies that I have dealt with. Now I gotta be careful because this is gonna suction this. And I was thinking when I'm making this video, I'm gonna pull that off there and pull the whole lid off and break that glass on there. So I have to be careful. But as far as this one goes here, as I said, this is a Fiji Cube pump. I've not had real good luck with Fiji Cube, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan right now. I've had products show up broken. I've had their pumps make noise. But the good news is, even with their noisy pump, or any pump that you get with any system that's making noise, the easy fix, as I said, is that material that I showed you to wrap around the system here. Not fully wrap around it, but just enough to where it creates a barrier and a bumper so that if this thing gradually moves and vibrates, you get that cushion against the glass or plastic or whatever it might go up against that's not going to allow this thing to make noise. So that's a really easy fix, and one that's, like I said, for 25 bucks you can get a roll of that stuff. If you've got multiple tanks like I do and you have a gallery, you know, instead of buying it in the sheets where it's really expensive and you know, no different at all. And you don't even have to use that exact product. There's several different products out there that are foam or rubber or whatever. They all do the same thing. The one thing I will say about the foam cushion, I have experienced over time, they get really rigid and stiff, whereas this material stays pliable and flexible all the time. It never ever gets rigid. So that may be helpful for you when you're looking at products out there. So getting back to aftermarket products, again, I like Aquatop here. I think they make a great product. This one does 237 gallons per hour and is good for tanks from 20 to 50 gallons. 20 to 40 gallons, I apologize. 20 to 40 gallons, and that's more than sufficient to create the environment for that flow that you need. Again, make sure you are pointing your nozzle that's coming out towards the top to make water movement across the top of that water. That's going to oxygenate your water to maximum and give you the best results, because when you're loading your tank up, these fish need to have oxygen. The plants are going to create that. Like I said, plant your tanks as heavy as you can. I've always said that in just about every video that I do. The more plants that you have in there, not only do they act as a filter, but they also put off oxygen, as you know, and keep your fish just that much more healthy. So keep in mind that you can get these aftermarket pumps for $29 to $49, way cheaper than what you're going to get them from large companies that sell these whole systems. If you want to get them from those guys, that's great. I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying this is an alternative. Again, as far as this type of system here, whether or not you need it, I don't know. All of us do different things. I use these, like I said, only to have water movement in a quarantine tank or a hospital type tank, because that's when you really need to have good air and oxygenation to the water. Now, if you want to use these in your system and you don't have one of these enclosed areas back here, basically you can't use these back there. They're really not going to do any good. But if you just have a glass system that you have put some backing on or something like that, you can use this down in there and create a lot of bubbles and hide it by using your hardscape to do that with the rock. You can do it with plants. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that you can do it. I'm just not a big fan of these because they make the they make the tank look cheap, to be honest with you. And that's just my opinion, and opinions are just opinions. But I really think that you just really, if you can avoid doing that in a tank that you're looking at all the time, it's probably best to not use this. But again, make sure you have this little check valve and change these stones periodically just to make sure they're not all gooped up. Also, put this on a nice smooth surface that is, if you can, get it on a carpeted surface. It's going to make the least amount of noise. Or if you can't do that, make sure that you've got it someplace where it's not going to dance across and vibrate eventually, like the same problem you have with the chamber back here with these pumps. I mean, these will dance across things as well. But they've got really nice rubber feet on them. This is a good product right here, Aquatop as well. And it's got good heavy rubber feet on the bottom. So if you do need one of these, that's a good one to have. And the fourth one is this guy right here, which is a great alternative for getting some good water flow in your tank. As I said, it's got this telescoping type situation on it. I'll put it up close to the camera so you can see how it moves around. And it has this little area here where it comes out. And it also has a flow control down here. Again, you can move this any way you want in your tank to go sideways, up and down, however you want to do it in your tank. The sideways isn't really all that great because that really defeats the purpose of this whole thing. So I personally like to put these up and down in there. But if you do have a small nano type tank situation and you're looking to get good water flow, this Aquatop product right here is fabulous with a 3-stage system built right into it. It's going to handle anything right up to 10 gallons and do a fantastic job. So anyways, I hope that I helped you to solve some of these problems, because I know I get a lot of comments about this, or people will send me emails on my Facebook page or Instagram and talk about this vibration noise that drives them nuts. It's totally silent in here. Every one of these tanks, even before I allow them to ever get to the point where they vibrate. I use that material when I'm setting them up just simply as part of the setup, so that I don't ever have to run into screwing around with these things and pulling them apart and having to put this material in there. I do it right from the start, so I never have the problem to begin with, and I think that's just the best way to do it. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll hit that like, subscribe, and the comment section down here. Leave me some comments if you have any ideas that I might have missed, or you want to add to something that I said, or you disagree with something that I said. That's fine too. And that's how we all learn. As I've said before in my other videos, I learn from you, you learn from me, and that's what makes this hobby get better and better all the time, is all of us learning from each other. So thank you for joining me today, and we've got a lot of great stuff coming up here. Hit that bell at the top. I'm learning it's on this side, I believe, so hit that bell so you know whenever I've got a new video coming out or new content. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there with me today and talking about a subject that I thought was really important. And we'll see you on the next one. We're out of here.